Welcome, everyone, to the Aging and Spirituality podcast. We are so happy to see you here.
We are.
I'm Kathy Lee Taylor, and your co host is.
Chris Jensen.
It's a fun day. It's a Friday, and we're doing what we love to do, which is come together and record this for you and give you some hopeful, helpful data that it will help your life be more fulfilled. That's what we love to talk about
That's right. I mean, we are working on it every day ourselves, and we want to share
ourselves.
with
Yeah,
you
that's
all that
exactly
goodness
right.
that we've learned.
That's exactly right. So today I wanted to talk about something that has to do with looking back a little bit in time in terms I was thinking about the generations that I came from and then what Chris came from.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about that time in kind of a special moment in our lives when you start to acknowledge that the life you've been living up until now really isn't entirely your own. There's scripts in there, there's masks in there you've been wearing, and after 60, that all starts to feel really different. Um, you really want to be able to be more authentic, right? I mean, you listeners tell us if we're wrong, but that's certainly how we felt for a long time in our lives. It didn't really take us to our 60s to get there, but
Mm.
really that pressure after that age becomes stronger and stronger to get to know who you are. Stop ignoring those inner voices and admit that, it's time to live an authentic life. And
Mm.
so what I wanted to do, like in looking back, was think about where we were and where we have come. Like, this is a good question to ask yourself to start out this conversation. How much of who I am was chosen by me?
Mm.
Now I would say something totally different than I would have even 5 years ago,
Mhm.
right? And how much of it was inherited from somewhere else? Your childhood upbringing, your experiences along the way, the stored trauma in your body, all of those things shape who you are and how you respond to the world and to your life challenges. So it's not just about, I mean, aging is not just about we get old and our bodies fail, right? I mean, most people think like that, and then they just
Oh, and it's
struggle to keep their
unfortunate.
their body in intact, right? But they don't look at all the other things that come with aging that are really, really beautiful, that are opportunities that really are not to be missed. This is not a time to be complacent. This is a time to really ramp up
Yeah.
your personal development and think
Mhm.
about the things that, are really important to you, that feel really honest to you. So, today we're going to gently walk through that space. I'm going to take you back in time a little bit and really illuminate some of the things that might be going on for you right now based on where you came from. So, if you were born in the 40s, 50s, this is going to be a great conversation for you. So, buckle up. We're going to make it fun.
Yeah. Mm. Mm.
So, I believe we have to understand how the world shaped us if we really want to know who we are today. So, in the 40s and the 50s, these decades that we came from, we went with the idea that these times were really a psychological blueprint for what we came to be. And after World War II, there was a collective push. Now, I'm talking about the culture and the zeitgeist of that time, the 40s and the 50s. There was a collective push towards stability and order and rebuilding after the war. And women were placed very intentionally, I must say, at the center of that structure, because the idea was really clear what they wanted us to be, which was be a good wife, be a good mother, create a beautiful home, support your husband. Like, do you remember that time? Like, I like, well, you could be a secretary if you wanted to, but that's about all you were encouraged to do. I don't know how that messaging came down to you, but I was never told that I could achieve great things, like And I mean the messaging for the women at the time were even more stark and kind of gross when I look back at them now. It's like, really? Like, don't
I
don't be too
share
needy.
something what
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
said
yeah.
about the messaging and the way it came down. My
Yeah.
mother was a concert pianist, and she was like a child prodigy. And
Oh,
so when she got married and then she got pregnant, she stopped playing.
oh gosh.
And she, and as I look back now, I see that she was a highly talented, intelligent woman trapped in an era when women were supposed to be accessories, you know. And she was frustrated, but the messaging she gave me was be a professional.
Don't let this nonsense stop you, in other
Right.
words.
Don't let it stop you.
Oh,
Be
that
a
was nice. You
professional.
got that messaging.
Yeah.
Nice
Now,
shit.
that wasn't the culture, but that was what she was telling me because she was clearly frustrated.
And with what happened to her from what I've heard you say over the years, is that she became emotionally kind of whacked out up and down all the
Yeah.
time, right? Because
Oh,
she was
yeah.
holding in
Yeah.
that part of her that was truly authentic and what she really loved to
Right.
do and be passionate about, she couldn't express.
She couldn't express it.
And there was a lot of women from those two generations that did exactly the same thing. My mother was one of those too. She just wasn't as kind as yours was. So some of the other messaging we got was, don't be too needy, don't
Mhm.
eat too much,
Yeah.
don't feel too deeply,
Yeah.
and don't take up too much space, right? I mean, that's literally, they
True.
just
It's
want you to be
absolutely
like in the
true.
background.
It's
That's
absolutely
what,
true.
that was a girl's place.
Yeah.
And although it doesn't feel like that many years ago, there wasn't much room for deviation for women at the time. Truly, I mean, your autonomy was limited, your financial independence was rare for women. I I mean, I started working when I was 12 because I knew if I didn't, I would never have any
Yeah.
money. And fulfillment was expected to come through service, which is interesting, right?
Mm.
To this day, that's still a theme. And here's the part that matters most. This wasn't always spoken outright. Nobody talked about it, and it didn't need to be. We just took it on. It was modeled to us. It was reinforced by our culture, and we absorbed it without questioning. And the point of having this conversation today is if you feel like you're one of those people, go back and look and see what those models were that you took in without questioning. Think about it because they shaped who you became.
Mhm.
And we carried it and it changed us in ways mentally, emotionally, physically.
Mm.
What we did say and what we didn't say,
Mm.
so we endured a lot quietly in those particular eras. It's different now. Now women speak out. They're ready to give you the middle finger and go forward, but we didn't have that
Well,
growing up in that generation.
we work with our daughters. You had a son, but the one thing that I emphasized with my daughter from the minute she was born,
Oh yeah.
that she was free to be whatever she wanted to be and could be. And I constantly emphasize that with her. I tried to have no sexism or limitations around her as best I could.
Look,
I mean, it was in the culture, but
and I would have done the same thing had I had a
yeah,
daughter.
yeah.
And you've done an amazing job with her. And she's a classic example of how, yeah, what happens if a woman's set free to go do exactly what she wants to do. She does. She does.
It does. It takes
And
no
she does
prison.
great things, right? She does great things. So, think about those decades that you were raised in, and you know if you don't have a sense of what it was that affected you, just think about the fact that everything your mother, your grandmother, your lineage taught you echoes through you. Your lineage was created
Yeah,
by that environment and by those
yes, it
people.
was. Yeah.
And all of that modeling that you saw, heard, felt, got
Yep.
internalized.
Mm-hmm.
And in that era, strength was really defined differently than it is today. Strength meant you had composure and you had endurance and holding it together,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you didn't show your weakness. That was a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So a lot of your emotions got repressed. A lot of the ideas and beliefs that you wanted to follow, your passions you wanted to follow, never got any attention. Your emotional expressions that resembled struggle was often seen as weakness,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like if you wanted something and didn't know how to get there, you weren't encouraged to get it. You were seen as, a pain. Just go shop, go do the dishes, go do, what I mean, whatever. Your entire being wasn't entertained, that you could do anything. And really at that time too, I remember especially mental health was something that you never talked about.
Yeah.
My mother had mental issues, no doubt about it. Trauma wasn't processed. It was absorbed as a way of life. It was just accepted that that's the way it was. And grief wasn't explored, it was tucked away and hope it passed away quickly, right? You didn't question it. So, emotions were not dealt with. They were not discussed. They were not explained, or you weren't told what to do with them. They're just things that you saw and kind of had to wing it the whole way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what this means to me. I don't know what this means for me or who I am because of it. But yeah, it was never a topic of conversation. And now when I look at it now today, having someone close to me in my life that has a divergent brain, it's a matter of almost every conversation. It's like it's a matter of not every conversation, but it's always in the awareness of the people
Yeah.
that are around her and dealing with her and
Mm-hmm.
talking to her, because you want to know what's going on with them, right? And this is part of their experience, their journey. So um many women back then became incredibly skilled at functioning like everything was normal, and at the same time what they were doing is literally quietly disconnecting from parts of themselves, including their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
because those parts that they wanted to be aware of meant nothing to no one. They couldn't have conversations about them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what's really important to know here is that when emotions aren't allowed to move, they don't disappear. Even if
Mm-hmm.
you're not paying attention to them, they get stored somewhere in your body, in your nervous system, in the patterns of behavior that feel normal, but they really are protective, because the body will work really hard to keep you safe,
Yes.
really hard to keep you safe. And then one other moment I wanted to mention about this time period in 1963, and I'm sure you'll remember this, there was a shift for women, and that's when Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique. Yeah, that's when I became an activist. And then that was published for the first time in 63, and many women saw their internal experiences reflected back to them, right? For the first time. They're like, whoa,
Problem that has no name. That's what you were just,
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
she called it, what you were just talking about. The problem that
The
has no.
problem. You just read my next line. That's
Oh, no.
exactly
Oh, I didn't
what
see it. Oh,
I
okay.
think she read. I think she read the book, listeners. Yeah. So the problem has no name. She named it for the first freaking time. What we've been talking up until now about,
Yeah.
and suddenly a lot of women began to realize it wasn't just them. She's
Yeah.
not alone. You're not alone in this.
Yeah.
And all that disconnection became an opportunity to connect with others. Right. So
Mhm.
that was 63. Think about that. Not that far ago. So even as the conversation began to open up externally in 63, internally, you were the same, right? Your conditioning didn't disappear. Um, we weren't understanding of what the transformation process looked like then, right? There might have been seeds in our brains about it, clearly you and I were always on that track of trying to figure this stuff out, because we joined on a yoga bandwagon really
No,
early in
she didn't get, she wrote it in 63, but she didn't get really popular till
until,
the late 60s. You know,
oh, the late 60s. Okay, I thought it was more like the
the later
70s. Okay.
60s when the feminist movement started and embraced her work,
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a lot of women said, well, I was in New York at the time in the late 60s, and I was, clearly young and
Yeah.
active. And
She,
there was the groups that used to call themselves the witches, because that's what you were thought to be. And it was women would sit in a circle
yep.
and they would like throw something into the center. They tell their story about how they had been squished into one of these ideas or discriminated against somewhere. And it was so freeing because for the first time, many women were talking to each other.
Other about it.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was amazing.
exactly.
Yeah.
She planted the seed and it took years to grow. And look, it's taken us that many more years to get where we are now. So it doesn't come quickly. But the point is that the person you were when those changes began to appear is still there. I mean, they might be underground. And I'm saying this to anybody who feel like they might have an underground that they haven't looked at yet. So, um, the question now is, what did many women carry forward without realizing it?
Mm.
This is where I want to end up with this conversation because
Yes, yes,
we've
yes.
we've had little talks like this before about what that generation and what how we came out of it. But I want to just address whether or not listener is feeling like there's anything in there that might be holding them back still, might be stopping them from following their beliefs or um, pursuing and kind of activating or even just understanding who they are on an authentic level, what they want to do, what are their passions, what are their skills and talents, and what is it that they feel like they're meant here to do on the earth, right? Like that's one of the biggest questions that people coming into yoga have. What is my purpose here? Purpose is kind of taken on a different term, but what is the service that I'm here to be? How can I help? And so, um, there is a set of, I think, deeply embedded beliefs that we probably came up with, and that is your needs come after everyone else's.
Yeah,
These were very important. These were very big beliefs in the 40s and 50s that we picked up. That being chosen by a partner or being chosen by society was what defined your worth.
yes, yeah.
Ugh. Yes, that you are responsible for holding everything together, you
Yeah,
being a female, because isn't
yeah,
that what we all do?
right.
And that expressing too much emotion was a burden,
Mm.
not for you, for everybody else.
Yeah.
And that the rest has to be earned.
Mm.
That we have to earn all those things that are the birthright of us being human beings,
Mm.
right? So really what I call that the mother lode of disconnect from the rest of the world.
Mm.
Really? That's how we grew up, you know? That's what we adapted to.
Mm.
That's what we thought was real because we were too young to know any different, right?
Yeah.
So ways of being that once made us feel safe and like we belonged became burdens, became
Mhm.
like, what is everybody talking about as we got older? And eventually those adaptations became our limitations. We still didn't know how to have fulfilled lives.
Mhm.
And so around the same time, another influence began to take hold around in the 50s, which I think is, I mean, it sounds silly to us now, but I think was a big shift in the consciousness. Televisions didn't come into play until the 1950s,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And what they curated was a whole world of how women should look,
Mhm.
what they should look like.
Yeah.
Perfect families, perfect homes,
Mm.
perfect women, perfect life. What a joke. And in 65, I actually had to look this one up to see when it started because I thought about Cosmopolitan magazine, like, because that was something I read when I was younger. And that was 65 when that launched in. It's been in business since the 1800s, but really came into people's world and consciousness in the fashion industry in 65.
Mm.
And so that was a powerful way of saying, here's a visual standard that all
Mm.
housewives can go and look up to. It makes me laugh now, but oh my God, we believed it so much.
Mm.
We all tuned in and read to see what should we look like and what should we eat and how should we speak and behave and how do we talk to our friends and what should we be doing with our lives? All of it all became freaking external at that point, right? Our answers were all out there. Cosmo was going to answer it. Other people
Yeah.
were going to answer our
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. Mhm.
It became very much anything outside was an example of how life should be, and anything else was falling short of that example.
Short of it. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we, all of a sudden we had a new way to judge ourselves, right? That seated comparison, that sense of not quite measuring
Mhm.
up to the standards began to root in ourselves as women. That's on top of everything else that we grew up with in the 40s and 50s. And so,
Mhm.
for some women, these standards still remain. I mean, just take a look at the younger generation now of the influencers. Same story. They're
Mhm.
doing the same thing, just upgraded it and put some fancy music to it and different
A little more
different
makeup and
different makeup providers. And made it hip, but it's the same freaking story,
the same
girls.
thing. The
Yeah.
same thing.
So
Yeah, yeah.
so really, so here's where we come full circle. The women who inherited this conditioning, 60 years later, we are now very much in a different phase of life. And we get to have this conversation because this is a phase where the primary roles that we inhabited back then have really, really shifted. Our roles of children, they've grown up, they've gone. Our careers have evolved, or they've wound down, or we've done something completely different. And our relationships, they all change and they grow and they
Yeah,
fragment,
yeah, yeah.
and life takes its course, right? Like
Mhm.
like Earth School has its has its time with us, right? All of our lessons. And in that space, what I believe happens is that something else begins to surface. It's kind of a quiet discontent, disorientation, maybe, and sometimes a sense of grief that I've lived more years behind me than I have in front of me right now. And I keep wondering, did I do everything I was supposed to do? Um, and if not, does that make me a loser? Like I never accomplished anything. Um, so often under all that questioning and that allowing yourself to look at how you feel as somebody that's over 60 years old and has all these ideas of what the next 20 or 30 years should look like, right? It's like there are parts of you that never were fulfilled. You can feel them, them. You know them intimately. You might be looking away from them, but your body will remind you all the time. Your the desires that you postponed, the voices that were softened when you should have spoke up, the truths that were never told that
Mhm.
were very much a part of who you are in your own life. And aging has a way of bringing those forward,
Yes,
you
it
know.
does. Yeah.
And I just want to say, don't be overwhelmed by them. Acknowledge them.
Mhm.
Acknowledge them. Take them in. Let them become part of who you become. Let them inform what's happening in your life in this next 20, 30 years. That's the best way to do it. Not getting complacent, just continuing to grow, right? So the conversation starts to shift because um, life isn't, what if life isn't really closing because our bodies are not as the same as they used to be? We don't look the same. But what if this is an opening? And this is the subject, the theme that we have here on this aging podcast all the time. We want you to change how you perceive aging and how you respond to it, because that's going to make the difference in between having a joyful, filled life that or sitting on the couch and, you know, watching TV. Not that that's bad. You can do that sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah.
But
Yeah.
we want to think about the fact that, aging is not about losing relevance. It's the opposite. You become much more relevant as you age with your wisdom and your ability to help other people. It's really about, shedding what was never true for you in the first place, that you've been carrying around in your suitcase for how many ever years you've been carrying it. Now it's time to let it go. Pack another case. There's something that happens when we move through time, that we begin to evolve and thrive during this transition after 60s. We begin to acknowledge what it is that we really want. And that is so powerful, because in order to do that, our nervous system has to slow down, right? That's what
Mhm.
yoga helps you do. I hear people talking all the time now. The younger generation talks about yoga the way we used to talk about yoga. They talk about your nervous system. They go, you got to slow your nervous system down, calm your nervous system. So I kind of figured out how to talk to that generation about the nervous system. It's like the nervous system does slow down when you are breathing.
Mhm.
You're actually doing, you're actually focusing on your breath. You're actually releasing the tension from your body, your nervous system, your vagal nerve, all of that is going to slow down. And when that happens, especially at our age, the distractions that used to get your attention when you're younger, they low don't appeal anymore. You don't want anything to do with them, right? You don't want all the distractions,
Right,
especially like
right,
you learn to handle them in a
yeah,
completely different way.
right.
So, what happens when that nervous system slows down and you're able to be with your body and your mind and your emotions that are not as chaotic, they're much more calm? Well, what happens is you get to hear your internal voice. You get to start to know what it means to listen to that inner guidance, or what I like to call the inner authority.
Mhm.
You get to listen to the messages that have been trying to get to you your whole life, but you couldn't hear it over the mind chatter and the chaos. So here's what am inviting you to do, listeners, and that is to move away from performing into simply being present. Move into being
Yeah,
present.
yes.
You don't owe anybody any kind of role modeling, any kind of anything
Yeah,
besides your present being.
who you are.
Just who you are. I love that. Yeah. Just be who you are. Stop holding on to obligations and move into alignment with that inner self. Give yourself the time to have the silence and the peace in your body, to have the nervous system rest enough to know what's going on inside of you, because that little voice will take you wherever you want to go. And that's the path to fulfillment, is understanding who you are. If nothing else in the world you heard out of this messaging, get that one.
Yep,
You know your inner self. You won't be
you know who
struggling
you
to
are.
be fulfilled. It just
Yeah,
happens naturally,
yeah,
right? Just
yes.
happens for you.
Hmm.
So if this conversation really resonates with you, think about this question, because becoming aware, as we've said many times, is where it begins. So think of this question, write it down. What is true for me now that was never in my awareness before?
Mm, yes.
For me, it's really understanding who I want to speak to and the messaging I want to get across, and how to take all the things that I've learned in my years of studying yoga and going through my personal life experiences, and how to message those in a way that women with similar experiences can catch it. And I'm starting to learn how to do that through my newsletter and to speaking it in lives and stuff like that. So for me, that awareness is, I'm not just a writer, or I'm not just a podcaster, or I'm not just an entrepreneur. I'm a person. I'm a Kathy Lee Taylor, and I have things that I came here to say and be and do. And I feel like those are happening for me.
Hmm.
So, listener, and see if you can answer that question. What is true for me now that was never in my awareness before? Notice your automatic responses and the beliefs behind them.
Hmm.
Write down you journal this one and write down what automatic responses you get. And then, because with those automatic beliefs and stuff that pop up that aren't necessarily helping you move forward, they're not necessarily taking you away from the chaos and the drama, but they're, keeping you caught up in that nonsense, or you're feeling complacent, whatever your response to that is. When you write those down and become aware of them, then just get good at letting them go.
Yeah, yeah,
Learn how to let them go. And in place of that, your deepest desires will come up, and they
yes,
will
yes.
they will be for you, there for you to follow, and you'll feel them. There'll be deep, powerful
Mm,
shifts. You'll know when they happen, right?
you
These are
bet.
your
Yeah,
these are your things to experience.
yes.
It's some of the most sacred work you'll ever do, is getting to
Mhm.
know yourself. So, and bless the women that came before us. The constraints that they were given. If we were to say to them, where were you when you were born into this world in 1930? Oh, wow. I can only just imagine
Mm,
what our mothers would, be able to say to us now. We can't know it because we didn't live it, but
yeah,
bless them for getting us as far as they did, and living with the constraints that they were given. They did the best that they could. And because of that, we're here. And aging really offers you something rare. It's a chance to live more consciously and to live more intentionally. So become your fuller self. That's the best thing you can do for yourself in the world.
You're doing that for the world too, because as
For
you're your
you.
fuller self, it affects others in a very positive way.
And that's the big message right there is,
Opens the door.
yeah, if you think about it this way, if you become complacent and don't share your gifts, you're taking away from the people in your life and the world that you could have helped, you could
Yes,
have added to.
yes.
And that's not to make you feel guilty. That's to make you say, I'm here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And whether your reason is out there learning to plant flowers or, growing food, whatever it is that you are excited about and passionate about, that's where you want to focus. That's where your gifts are. That's where these little lessons, if you can take them and
Mm-hmm.
wrap them up and give them as gifts to others, it's going to be very beneficial for the world. I truly believe if we all women, this is one of the things that I talk about on my Substack all the time. If women, no matter how big or how small their vision is for what they want to do with their lives, if they do it authentically in line with spirit, we will change the world.
Yes,
We will change the energy of the world.
I believe that.
Yeah, you've just become more fully yourself,
Yep.
and if you need a question for that, just say, who have I been? I'm sorry, not who have I been, but what part of me is ready to be lived now?
Oh, I love that. I love that.
What part of me is ready to be lived
That's
now?
been in there waiting. Mm.
Yeah, because I bet you $100, you know the answer to that question. And it's a matter of acknowledging it to
Mhm.
yourself, admitting it to yourself, and committing that
Yes.
you will become the person that can ride that horse into the west, that can do that, that
Yep.
can, live their life. That is what you're here for.
Yep.
No judgments, just love and gratitude. And oh, we hope, we wish you the best. If this talk actually resonated with you, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe and like and share so we can get more people that come and listen to us
Yeah.
talk.
And yes, and enjoy these things and tell us how you're doing with it. We want to know.
Yes, please engage. Please ask questions. Please send us suggestions on things that you might be struggling with
Yeah.
that we can,
Yeah.
chat about. That's fun for
Right.
us,
Yeah, we'd
right?
love to do that.
All right, good. We love you. Hope you had fun.
Thank
See you
you for
next
coming.
week.
Bye.
See you next time.